And a good Saturday morning to everybody. Welcome back to Breeze Stevens Field here at Championship Weekend 11. And these are Championship Day press conferences. We are joined first by the New York Empire head coach, Charlie Happis. Charlie, thanks for being here for the second day in a row. Congratulations on a great performance last night. Obviously, the Empire weren't coming off their finest game against the DC Breeze. What were the most satisfying things about what y'all did offensively and defensively against the Flyers last night?
You know, that's a great question. Obviously, yeah, very cathartic win last night for all of us. Offensively, you know, we had a meeting beforehand, and one of the things we ended it with is Jack talked about, this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard. They're going to play good defense. We're going to have to fight for every reset. We're going to have to fight for everything against a defense that's as good as Carolina, especially in their first couple layers. And, be ready for that and embrace it. And I thought that the first 3 or 4 O points, Carolina was especially tough on us. And it was sort of just a matter of us having to win the small space, beating people up the line. It was easier said than done. I think once we started holding through that pressure, we got more and more comfortable with it. We were able to play through it. So that was a really impressive thing. And on the defensive side, I think it's easy to say, we talked about this with DC against us, it's easy to say, we have a game plan and it's going to be to, make Carolina, who's so good at possessing, shoot. It's a lot harder to make a team do what they don't want to do. That's not their game plan. And for, we were talking about earlier today, it's so hard to make a team, it's so hard to execute a game plan for 3.5 quarters like we did. And unbelievable performance by our defense. I think one of the best that I've honestly ever seen. So really, really awesome. Step up, we're going to go slightly really quick. Can you hear me? All right, here we go. I'll try.
What did you see from the sidelines, and what aspects of your game plan did you execute to, force the Flyers offense that really stymied you a year ago into a very different outcome last night?
Yeah, no, again, it's really easy to talk about pushing teams to their plans C and D. On this field in this league, the throwers are so excellent that it's hard to get just pure straight-on blocks. So you want to just try to put teams into positions that, certain players are doing things that they're not used to doing and making them play outside of their game and outside of what they're comfortable with. And again, that's like a really easy game plan to say. I joked about it last week. Of course, push Ryan Osgar out. Like, duh, right? But it's so hard to actually make that happen because he's incredible and the field is huge, and also he's good at going deep. And for us, we did that. I think we just put them in positions again and again that they had to execute things that were their plans C and D, and they're an excellent team, and so they did it quite often. But we got them to throw a couple deep ones. We still weren't getting blocks, but we got them to overthrow a couple times, got them to throw a couple that hung up, and we got some opportunities.
You called this win cathartic, right? It's safe to say that you've been thinking about this matchup for a long time, since last year. Yeah,
I think yes. Yes, I mean, we after the championship game last year, I mean, you grieve. You spend so much time investing in something. It's a grieving process when you lose, especially, it's not like we didn't play well in the championship game. We played fantastic. Carolina just put on an all-time performance.
So after, sorry to interrupt, but looking ahead to today's game, right? This was the game it seems like you guys were looking forward to last night. Now you have a championship game. You've got to win it. How do you steer your team emotionally after this win? Do you feel like you're going to need a little bit of a correction? Do you feel like there might be a hangover at all from a big win last night?
That's exactly right? Like, I've watched last year's championship game 15 times. My co-coach, Anthony Nunez, has seen it 0. So, when you have a game like that, it gets all the way into your core of being. And so then to have a win that is as cathartic about something that has been that deep, and you've got another game to play, right? And this one's the big one. This is the championship game, and so we have to make it the big one, and there is of course going to be concern about hangover or like mission accomplished style, banner in the background. Chicago's an amazing team, and we have to prepare for them mentally the same way that we just prepared, and that is going to be, I think, our biggest challenge by a lot, right? One game we've been preparing for mentally and emotionally for a year. Another game we've got 24 hours.
I hope you've had some of those rewatches on mute and you haven't had to listen to us bloviate ad nauseum. Last night, Jeff Babbitt was present, got himself on the score sheet. We noticed his play volume kind of taper off towards the end of the game. What can you share about his status and how you expect to deploy him and how much he'll be able to play tonight?
Sure, yeah. Jeff started dealing with some cramps late in the third. We were fortunate to be able to rest him the entire fourth quarter, which is great. So, yeah, it's sort of, we'll see how he loosens up. He will play in this game, certainly. It'll just be a matter of what his role will be, how much he can go, all that sort of stuff. So I'd say anywhere from limited to the full Jeff Babbitt experience. We'll see. Yeah.
So the John Randolph block after the clock issue late in the first quarter felt like such a game-changing play. Can you speak to what you saw there, what the long break was like? And you guys were talking with the officials for a long time, and just like, does John do that in practice to guys all the time too?
The JR part of it, he's just like an astonishing player, and he does astonishing things at a rate that it makes it, if you're around it enough, you like forget that it's astonishing. And so, yeah, now that's both like incredible moment for our team season, and also like not shocking that John gets that block there. I think something that we've done all season is, just looked ahead, and I think we've done this so much better than last season, is whatever is in front of us is what we're focused on. And, if that means we're, on a back-to-back in Canada and we're up by 12, we've had guys, we pulled our first D-line and had the second D-line play much of the second half in that game. And the first D-line is up on the sideline. They're picking out people that they're going to talk to each point. Everyone's been engaged every moment this whole season. And so, the clock issue is really weird. We think we're going into the quarter break up 4-2. We've got our stop. We're feeling it's a big emotional high. And then, a bunch of weird stuff happens, and all of a sudden we have to go back out there and try to replicate that against, again, a very, very good offensive line just outside of the red zone with 15 seconds left. And it just sort of speaks to how our team is, that their response to that was to do better than the first time, because they didn't let it sag. They just stepped up into what the moment was. And, we've done it all season, and that's felt really great and consistent, and a big difference from last year. And so, yeah, hopefully we get moments like that tonight as well.
So I want to look ahead to tonight's game. I think the Chicago defense poses a bit of a different challenge than Carolina's. You spoke yesterday before the game that you had a few different options, whether it's playing Ben Yard or John Randolph more on offense. Can you talk a bit strategically about how you're approaching the challenge of the Chicago defense?
Yeah, they're really different, like you said, and very athletic. Some major length on that line. We're going to try to play our game. I know that sounds pretty cliche, but we've got an offense that can do a lot of things well, and our plan B and C is quite good, and our players can shift into that without honestly any coaching adjustments. There's no huddles that I have to run and say, hey, we're going to change up to XYZ. I think a lot of that is it's a testament to everybody on the line, but it's a testament to some of the flexibility. So we've talked. Jack was on here yesterday talking about how he doesn't have a super defined role on our line in general. He does the thing that's needed, and when we're up by 9 in the third quarter against some teams in the regular season, it's not a whole lot, and so you don't see giant stat lines from Jack in the regular season because he's letting other people cook. But just like a great closer in baseball or a great ISO scorer in the NBA, as true superstar, when the game's tight, when it's a big moment, you get the games that you've seen from Jack lately. So Jack's a big part of that, but the flexibility of Charles and Osgar, and then John and Jeff are such reliable throwers, and then our resets have been incredible. Saul and Elliott again all season. Last night was just an unbelievable, underrated performance from those two guys. The pressure they were facing was immense, and they just played through it. Played maybe their best game of the whole season, each of them, which is no small thing. Just like that flexibility is, and then of course we've got John Randolph and Yacht. So if those guys are banged up or need to change a pace, we've got two very different Callahan winner and 2-time reigning MVP at our disposal. It's pretty fortunate situation that we're in.
You talked about having 24 hours to prepare for this game, where you had a year to prepare for the last one. So it seemed like last night you had a crystallized idea of how you want the game to go. You talked about making Carolina shoot. If you were to kind of talk about how this game is going to go, if it's going to be successful for you, how does that visualization, how does that work out?
Sure.
If the Empire are going to pull out victory tonight?
Sure. Yeah, and I should say, we had a strange gap of time between our last regular season game and our first playoff game, so almost a month. And so maybe a little bit longer than 24 hours. We obviously knew Chicago's an excellent team and that they were a team we could face. So over the last month, we've seen a lot of Chicago film. X's and O's wise and scouting wise, it's been much more than 24 hours. It's more emotionally. But yeah, I think, in my mind's eye, hopefully, things go as perfectly as they did last night, right? The Chicago defense is going to apply excellent pressure because they're an excellent team. We're going to play through it. We're going to maintain possession. We're going to get the tough holds early. That will definitely need to happen. And then defensively, we will ratchet up that same pressure. We'll get the turns and run them in. I think our D-line did a great job of converting last night, sort of in their style. Some hilarious break attempts by our second D-line. Just where I am stressed out. We didn't have handlers on a couple of those D2 lines in an effort to just get the turn, and then we'll take the timeout. No worries, guys. But maybe if there's a fast break, you can get it. And led to Matt Stevens throwing a couple hammers, which gave me a heart attack. And Matt hasn't had a turnover all year, so I don't know why it gave me a heart attack. But I think Matt in particular calling Mike Drost off the disc to pick it up, I was like, oh yeah, Matt doesn't ever turn it over. This is great. if he gets stuck, he'll just take a timeout. He picks it up and throws a hammer right away, and I was like, oh my god. So just a lot of fun moments for that line. That line's come a long way since last year, and it felt good to see them contribute. And again, a very cathartic win. Members of that second D line last year, I think, only played 3 points in the championship game. And so to see them play so huge, Mike Drost with a great catch on a hanging blade from Yacht. He's had a couple under pressure, really great catches in the DC game as well. So yeah, it's good stuff. That all that stuff is in my mind as I'm thinking about the next game here.
We got to get to your players, but one final thing. I was just curious to ask you about Ryan Osgar's performance last night, coming off a 4-turnover, 1-assist game, where DC, forced him into some uncomfortable positions. And last night, I don't want to say he looked like vintage Ryan Osgar because he was scoring more goals than throwing them, but he certainly looked recentered for the Empire.
Yeah, I mean, he's unquestionably one of the best players in the sport today, and he's playing at the highest level he ever has. So it's not surprising. I think Ryan is a big time performer and can play a lot of different styles and has done all of those different styles at the highest level of the sport. So no surprise at all there. He's gonna play great again tonight. There's things that we know, and that's definitely one of them, is that our best players are going to show up and play their best.
Great stuff. Congrats on the win last night. Look forward to seeing you later, Charlie.
Hey, yeah, thanks so much.
It's Charlie Happis, coach of the New York Empire. We'll bring in John Randolph, who had one of the more memorable hand blocks in the history of championship weekend in the final moments of the first quarter last night. John, thanks for being here. Get comfortable. It's been quite a 6-month stretch of Ultimate for you, from college to Worlds to AUDL. Let's talk about the play at the end of the first quarter last night when the disc gets whistled back in. Alex Davis has it. What are you looking for? Can you just take us through your mindset on that play?
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting moment because we were set up and waiting in that spot for what felt like 2 whole minutes. Like waiting for the clock to get figured out and for the refs to whistle it in. And I was really nervous that whole time because I forget who it was cutting up line, but their player had a pretty clean look at the end zone, and I know that's what they like to attack. That's their look. And so I knew as soon as it was tapped in that that's the spot they're going to try and hit. And so fortunately I got my hand up, got a piece of it. Yeah.
You joined the team partway through the season, didn't sign before the season started, had your commitments with Collegiate Ultimate and things like that. What have been the keys for being able to integrate so well with these defensive units? I mean, whether it's things in practice, guys talking to you outside of practice, I'm speculating, but what's been most important to getting you on the same page with everyone?
Yeah, I mean, the whole team and whole organization has really helped me get on the same page with everyone. One thing that's helpful is playing with 11 of these guys on Pony last season and this season again, so obviously I have some chemistry with them. And then just like getting a lot of reps in practice and in games, and I think the coaches and leadership have been pretty intentional about how they structure those reps in practice and in the games that aren't so close to prepare us for these moments. And then also it's guys like Jeff Babbitt and Ben Katz in particular teaching me the systems and telling me where to go. So they've been really helpful too.
John, I know you have a lot of experience playing at the highest level and being in championship games in collegiate club and, of course, now the AUDL. But unequivocally, New York looked so poised and ready for the moment. And I'm curious if you can give us a glimpse into what were some of the conversations, what were some of the routines the team went through to step onto the field and look so prepared.
Yeah, so I've been on a few teams that have made it to semis of tournaments or finals of tournaments. And it's interesting how those different teams react in the warm-ups. You can tell sometimes teams are nervous. Sometimes they play their emotions close, up their sleeves. And during our warm-up at the practice field, I thought we were a little quiet. We didn't execute very well when we had reps. But then I realized as soon as we got in the huddle and everybody started screaming, it was because everybody on our team wanted to win so bad. And I wasn't on this team last year, but I think a lot of it is obviously the way last year shook out and they beat us last year. And it was, I think it was one of the most complete team performances I've seen from a team like this, that every single person was locked in and trying their hardest.
Yeah, John, like Megan just alluded to, you've played in the finals of various tournaments with a few different teams over the past few years. I'm curious what this moment feels like to you specifically, not just the team as a whole, whether it's the stadium, the fans, the lights, the broadcast, whatever it is. How is this moment unique compared to those other ones?
This moment definitely is unique. It's interesting that you mentioned like the fans and the lights and stuff, because those things really affect your warm up and sort of how you're thinking before the game. But I find that as soon as the first pull goes up, that stuff mostly goes away, and it really all I'm thinking about is the plays on the field. And I couldn't tell you how many or how few people are in the stands, especially last night, playing against a lot of the same guys who I've played against before many times. That felt pretty familiar. And so the biggest differences that made this unique, I think, are just the rule changes in the AUDL and the wind conditions last night in this type of stadium, and sort of those little on the field things.
I don't know if y'all have gone over your game plan yet for Chicago, but who are you looking forward to guarding on the Union O-line? And that Chicago offense has been pretty crisp their past few games. What have you thought watching them, and how do you muck them up today?
Yeah, watching them, they do look crisp. It'll be interesting. It's so interesting in the AUDL that you don't get to see the rivals in the other divisions until the most important games ever. And we haven't really gone over our game planning. I think we'll do that later today, but I think I'm going to get a lot of Rutledge, and that'll be a fun matchup.
Great stuff, John. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for being here, and best of luck tonight.
Great. Thanks for having me.
John Randolph of the New York Empire. And one more member of New York will join us here, the guy that's played more playoff games in the history of the AUDL than anybody, Mike Drost.
Is that true?
That is true.
I know most of my stats, but I didn't know that one.
Yeah, well, the Empire have now played more playoff games than anybody in the league. Tonight will be number 19, and unless the records that I've looked at are wrong, you've played in every single one of them. So what does it make you think about to hear that nugget?
It's cool. It's cool to know that. I mean, a lot of it comes down to the rest of my teammates and the organization that I've been able to be a part of for 9-10 years now. I've been committed to the team, so I know I've been at all the playoff games. So if that's the case, that's pretty cool. But a lot of credit goes to everyone else involved with it that makes it possible to play in all the games.
I mentioned on the broadcast last night that in 2013, I think you had 41 blocks in 16 games, and just numbers that would be absurd if it happened today. Can you speak to how, getting a block has become so much more difficult over the course of the past decade, and just how, you've had a front row seat, literally and figuratively, to see the league grow, and just what has that been like for you on and off the field?
Oh yeah, 2013 was like a gold mine for blocks. BJ's right over there. We had the some teams, his Dragons, the Hammerheads. No offense to them. Even our team was so much less developed at that point. So offenses were just a lot riskier with the disc. That took not as disciplined, not as precise with their throws. So it's really incredible how it's changed over the last decade. And yeah, it's gotten so much harder. Everything's more of a challenge on defense every time you get the disc away from the offense. So yeah, that's definitely true. But yeah, 2013 was a good start, a good time to be in the league too, especially as a defender.
So in this league, you've made a name for yourself, being an all-time leader in blocks. But your pedigree coming into the league, you often face people who are Callahan winners, a lot of tough matchups. Can you speak a little bit to your mentality as a defender? Like you have had to kind of been the hard worker that comes up. And what is your mindset going into those big matchups? Do you care who you're guarding? Like what goes through your mind when you're just out there competing?
It's funny because I definitely know, I'm aware of who I'm covering, and, if they're, whatever, someone who's a big name or whatnot, I definitely am aware of that, but just try to put it out of your mind and focus on executing the game plan, being disciplined, and doing the best you can, knowing that it's not going to be, you're not going to win every moment against great players, and it's, about finding on the margins, making them less comfortable. So, you get that one mistake that gives you an opportunity at a break that's so important. And also it's great now I have, every year it seems like I have better teammates. So I don't have to do so much anymore.
Mike, yesterday your coach Charlie Happis sat in that seat and talked about your development as a handler this year. I'm curious to hear from you as you picked up more throwing responsibility, what that process has been like, and how the season's been different than ones in the past.
It's been a little very different, a little challenging. It was a big surprise when he talked to me about that at the beginning of the year. So, it's. I'm just trying to fill the role as best I can, do whatever the team asks, and try to help us bring home a championship. But, you saw Charlie called 2 timeouts when I picked up the disc yesterday. So, I think that's where we're at.
Do you have any animosity towards your former coaches or maybe, recent coaches about not letting you handle in the past?
No animosity, but I think, maybe, I did have some talent there, and maybe they weren't creative enough to find ways to get me more involved on the field, potentially. Yeah, BJ.
When you think about this matchup tonight, you think about Chicago's O-line. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about preparing for them?
Well, it's funny. We, because we played the second game yesterday, I've watched Chicago a little bit. I did watch their playoff game against Minnesota just previously, and they were looking really good. So we know it's going to be a challenge. In terms of the specifics, I know the coaches were up late last night, figuring out the game plan. We're going to go over that in a little bit, and even if I had the specifics, I probably wouldn't say them right now. But they have a lot of good players. They were looking really great. Poffel's obviously incredible handler and all-time assist leader now, and they've got a number of other versatile players. So we'll go over the game plan. We'll come in and try to force those like I was saying before, get those errors where we make them do something a little bit that they're not as comfortable at doing, and hopefully get those few mistakes that we can convert into break scores.
Mike, John Randolph talked a little bit about the emotional readiness of the team going into yesterday's game, and I'm curious how you think the team can replicate that level of preparedness right from the outset. And if you don't achieve that, who are some of the players you look to right the ship in these big moments?
Yeah, I think that is certainly a challenge for us today. We've been thinking about getting another chance to play Raleigh since we lost, or Carolina now, since we lost them in the championship last year. So it is something we have to make sure that it's not like a letdown where, we know Chicago is good, but it doesn't have the same buildup as, the team that we beat or that we lost to last year and coming out, getting another chance at them this year. So in terms of the guys, our captains, Jack, Jeff, and also Ryan Holmes are guys that we're going to look to help keep us, make sure we're as engaged as we need to be to try to take home a championship.
Mike, I understand that you're potentially moving to Boston in the fall or after the season. What does that mean for your future with the Empire?
Yes.
Could today be it?
So, I started law school. I actually, surprisingly, I got last second news in the last few days that I got into got off the wait list. So I am staying in New York now. BJ. Very last second. I'm super excited about it, but I've still, Brian and I will probably do the same thing, every year now we're getting older and we take some time to think about what we're going to do. But I've definitely, thought about the possibility, even though now that I'm staying here, that it could be the last game. I practiced on Wednesday, it ended, and I was like, there's a chance. But I don't know. We got a long way to go, and I definitely recognize it's a possibility. But I'm just excited to go for a championship today and focus on that right now.
Wise stuff from a veteran player. Mike, congratulations on a great career, great season, and hope it's not the end, but hope you enjoyed tonight regardless, and best of luck to you.
Thanks, Evan.
Thanks for being here this morning. Mike Drost to the New York Empire. Appreciate Mike and John and Charlie all joining us, and now we'll welcome in the head coach of the Chicago Union. He was our leadoff hitter yesterday, and he's batting cleanup today.
I love the baseball references.
Dave, what was yesterday like for you to see your team play as well as it did and then get to sit back and relax and watch the scary team that you're going to be playing tonight?
Oh, man, it was great. I mean, you guys are aware of what a great place Breeze Stevens is to watch Ultimate. So we got 2-1, or 2 for 1. We got to play and experience that. And then we got to come and be fans in the stands. We ordered a mass order of burritos for the team. So we came and we just ate burritos in the stands and heckled the guys that were on the field. It was a great experience.
Dave, I feel like yesterday your D-line offense came together almost in a way that maybe it hadn't quite fully performed all season long. I mean, Dalton and Joe combined for, I think, 62 completions with no turns, 6 assists. Huge stuff for your D-line offense. Where did that come from? How did this, I guess, coalesce in the most important game of the season up until that point?
Well, it's something with those players especially, that they're very capable of, and it's something that we expected to see against Minnesota in our division championship game. And for whatever reason, our entire D-line that first half decided that they were the power position shooters whenever they touched the disc. So coming into this weekend, it was a clear change that needed to be made. Like, we have the strength of our throwers, but we can succeed with our legs also. So let's see that. Let's not have as many turnovers as we saw against Minnesota, and let's take it to Colorado like we were supposed to do. That was our game plan coming in, was let's work the disc, let's work it under, let's use our throwers and our legs, and let's get breaks that way, as opposed to trying to force things that might not be there.
I'm curious if after watching that game, there are adjustments that you want to make to your team going into today's game.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be probably a few adjustments, perhaps in terms of personnel, perhaps in terms of priorities and things like that. But the main thing, I mean, we played a really good game last night, so the tweaks aren't going to be so much internal as they're going to be tweaks for how we're going to play against New York.
Yeah, I want to ask about that. New York faced immense pressure from Carolina and didn't really blink. I mean, Carolina threw everything they could at them and didn't really get a lot of break chances and only ended up getting 1 break. How do you crack against this very good O-line? A little windier today, as a point we should maybe make now.
It is a little bit windier today. I expect it's going to slow down by game time, as that tends to be the pattern in the Midwest, is windy in the middle, lighter in the evening. With it being a 7 o'clock game, I think it'll probably calm down pretty well by the second half. But it's something that we're going to be paying attention to when we start the game for sure. We know that we're very familiar with the wind here in the Midwest, being from the Windy City. And you saw especially in our first game, the small impacts that the wind had on the disc in that first semifinal game, starting at 5 o'clock. So I don't know if it'll be as big of a factor. What I do think is going to be fun to watch tonight is I think it is going to be an epic battle of D-lines, at least I hope. I would love if we can keep our D-line on for as many points as possible. We're pretty confident with the showings that we've had the last few games with our D-line and being able to create turnovers and then convert into breaks. So that's going to be what we're going to try to do tonight as well. We're working hard to identify who we're going to match up on the many weapons that the New York O-line has. They make it fun, we'll say, for any opposing team, but we're going to do our best, and I think we've got some fun matchups penciled in for right now.
It's a perfect segue. I was going to say, you know, the focus will be a lot on New York weapons, but can you talk about an element of the game that you're particularly excited about from your perspective?
We've got a lot of young talent on the D-line specifically that has just been going out and doing everything that we ask of them. So players like Asher Lance, he had that awesome layout to save a goal, or I think it was to steal a goal is how the AUDL put it, which that was fantastic for Asher. We've been really excited about Jace. Every game that he's come in, he's made an impact. You know, players that we've had on the line for a long time, like Jason Valley, he's been having a standout year. And then, you know, everybody's been talking about Nate Goff. He was able to play a little bit more reserved, we'll say, last night because there was so much pressure coming from other parts of our D-line. So I think all eyes might be on him a little bit more tonight. But I'm excited in terms of what we're going to do. I'm just excited for this team to finally make it to the pinnacle game. We've been working for it for so many years, and here we are. We've been saying all along, this is the ultimate goal. We now have reached it, but we've just got that one more W to get in the books to put a cap on our historic season. So that's what we're going to try and do.
Dave, your offense has been super smooth the past couple games as well, much like New York's was last night. The Empire put a ton of defensive pressure. How do you feel your O-line will handle the pressure ticking up a few notches from what Colorado did to them yesterday?
Yeah, we kind of finished the game with a couple stumbles, which I wasn't too happy about. But we've already been talking about adjustments this morning and things to consider and look at. I am happy to say that a lot of our players on the O-line respond well to that extra pressure and rise to that challenge. Ross, who is going to be on here in a second, him particularly, growing up playing very competitive sports at the highest level in each of them, and then also growing up with two brothers, you know, you kind of know how that's going to be. Players like Jeff Weiss, Pavel always seems to be our steady go-to guy when the pressure rises. He's kind of our pressure valve. So we are very much anticipating a much more intense matchup from New York than anybody else that we've seen this season. And the emphasis is going to be just the same as always. You guys just create space for each other and attack that space, and let's hit each other in the chest.
Last question, Dave. How'd you sleep last night? Were you thinking more about the win, or were you more kind of stressed out, focused on the championship game that was ahead?
Well, you know, we as an organization, like I said yesterday, we focus on the next game as opposed to dwelling on what just happened. So the Knights win wasn't too much in my mind. To answer your first question, though, I did not sleep last night for the second night in a row. But that's fine. This is an exciting weekend, and you know, I'm glad that I'm here not sleeping as opposed to at home watching and getting good night's rest in Chicago.
Well, hopefully maybe get a pregame nap in this afternoon. Dave, best of luck getting your prep done and having a good time out there tonight. Congrats on being here, and we look forward to the game. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.
It's Dave Woods, coach of the Chicago Union. Paul Arters will be joining us now. Championship game, the Empire and the Union, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock Central on Fox Sports 2 tonight. Game day coverage on AUDL Facebook and YouTube beginning half hour before that. Paul Arters joins us now. Paul, thanks for being here. Congrats on the win last night.
Appreciate it.
the thing that I was most curious to ask you was about how you developed your vision as a thrower, because I feel like you take shots that a lot of other throwers don't take, and you just kind of seem to see things on the field that other throwers don't. And I'm curious if you can reflect on that and share how you feel like you've developed that vision.
I had a lot of reps starting at Ohio State. We were a really good team my freshman year, and then we lost 14 or 15 seniors going into my sophomore year. And they put me as center handler and just gave me an opportunity to get throws after throws after throws to good receivers in kind of a low-pressure situation. And then I feel like some of the best throwers that I've seen just get an opportunity to throw more than others. And so that was kind of, I think, the start of me looking for something that might not be there because we didn't have the best offense or because we wanted to keep it in the hands of some of our better throwers. And then when I moved to better teams, I kind of still looked for some of those, playing with like High Five or Mad Cow. But I think that jumping to Machine was when I kind of put together, okay, I have to play kind of a cohesive offense, and then when I see my opportunity, I can take a shot. I think that's translated really well to the AUDL with a larger field.
So this is a different matchup tonight, but in a lot of cases, you've actually played against a lot of these New York players that they've defended you. Most recently at the World Club Championships, where we played for a Belgian team, the Mooncatchers. You got fourth. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Does your game? How do you see this type of game and the type of defense that you expect from New York? Does your game change at all, or how do you kind of take on that matchup?
Yeah, we've played Pony a lot. We've played New York teams a lot. I think I've seen a lot more person defense from them, and I think when Pony or New York, any team plays person defense on me, it's the same matchup for that. If they put someone like Jabron or Grant, if they're playing tight person defense, then it's the same game. If Pony changes up their defense on me, if New York changes up their defense on us and runs more of a poach system, runs something that is a little bit more complicated, I think that's when the game changes for me.
You're obviously a very versatile offensive player. Where do you feel most comfortable in an offensive set? Being centered to, initiating, catching that first under and continuing. Like where do you feel like, hey, this is where I'm at home and locked in and can add the most value?
I mean, we've been centering to Pavel all year. I don't get many reps centering, so I'm probably not the most comfortable centering. I like doing it, but we have a guy that's his job. So I like being the guy downfield who gets that first cut. I like being a guy who gets a swing pass and has a continue open downfield. I like to hit the first open throw regardless of what it is, and I think I'm pretty good at that.
I've talked to a few Union players yesterday and congratulated them on the win, and no one seemed quite satisfied with the win because that wasn't the goal. This game was the goal. Can you talk a little bit about the team mindset going into this game, having never been in the championship game at the AUDLs before?
Well, we made it here last year. We wanted to make it further than where we got last year, and I feel like we didn't overlook Colorado, but we really wanted to beat them and move on to the next phase. And I think it's when you get that close to winning it all, you're never satisfied with second. You're really going to try to win it all. So I think we played a game where we felt like we were in control most of the game, and because of that, we feel like we have a shot at winning this next one.
What grade would you give the O-line from yesterday, and do you feel like you need to play better today against New York to win the championship?
Yeah, for sure. I would give it maybe a C. I think compared to our Minnesota game, we had a lot more presence of mind to actually contain, swing the disc, do things correctly. I think here we were a little more frantic, and that might just be championship weekend. But I think that the O-line has a lot more room to improve, and we've gone and looked back at what we did wrong, and we think we have an answer to respond better, hopefully. And I think that we should definitely play better today.
Jack Williams has been posting a bunch of video breakdowns on his personal social media channels, and he called you the most underrated player in Ultimate right now.
Okay.
I don't know if you'd heard that, but now that you have heard that here, curious how that sits with you and what that does for your motivation, or if it means absolutely nothing.
I mean, I think Jack's really good. I think it's clear to everyone that he's up for discussion as the best Ultimate player right now. It's great to get a compliment from him. I loved playing with him at Worlds tryouts. But as far as like an analysis or him like shouting me out, I think we still have to play our own game. I think we're not going to change something. I'm not going to start throwing like even harder throws because Jack thinks I'm good. So I appreciate the shout out, Jack, but we're going to have to play our own game.
Yeah, Paul, we have just a few hours before the championship game. I don't think your team is going to go out to a backfield and install a crazy new offense or anything, but what are you doing over the next few hours to get ready for the championship game?
I don't really know. So my dad's in town. I'm going to go grab lunch with my dad. He comes to all these games, so he's one of Union's biggest fans. And after that, who knows? I think the White family as well. Our dads play Grandmasters together, so we're going to probably see each other hang out for a little bit. It's been a fun duo to have, Joe and I, as well as George and Dave.
I know your father played Ultimate and still plays Ultimate. I'm not sure the extent of how competitive he was. How does your game compare to your dad's game?
I've asked him about that. He says I'm much better. I remember when I was younger, I would go like watch some of his practices, and when I was maybe 14 or 15, we played together in like the club division for the last time. And yeah, if I can make it to 33 and he's still like 67 or so, we could play on a Masters team together.
Last thing, Paul, just what are you most looking forward to about tonight and getting the chance to play this juggernaut of a New York team that's going for an undefeated season in front of this crowd in this Ultimate setting?
I mean, with them beating Raleigh yesterday, it's clear that they're probably the best team here. And it's super fun to have the opportunity to play like such good Ultimate like that. I would say, our division's good. I loved playing Minnesota. I loved playing all the teams. But playing the same team over and over again, it kind of gets like a little stagnant. And so changing up the matchups, getting to do something new is probably what I'm most excited for.
Great stuff. Paul, appreciate you joining us here, and best of luck tonight.
Thanks again, everyone.
Paul Arders of the Chicago Union. And last but not least, we'll wrap up our press conferences with a guy who's played a lot of big games here at Breese Stevens Field. Ross Barker, who began his AUDL career with the Madison Radicals, joined the Union in 2018. And I mean, Ross, when you joined the Union in 2018, they were coming off a subpar season. Pavel's first year with the team was 2017. Can you speak to how this team has built and kind of rebuilt from the early success they had in 13, 14, 15, kind of at the top of the division, falling off? Now you're in the championship game, first time in franchise history. What does that feel like, and how'd you get from where you were back a half decade ago to now?
I think that is one of the more satisfactory feelings for me playing this team, coming from Madison 17, where we lost in semis to the Flamethrowers in Montreal. And then I moved to Chicago after graduating from Wisconsin. And I was real torn because part of me wanted to come back to Madison. But I was at a point in my life and career where I wanted to play as much Frisbee as possible. And I knew that would only be possible if I played for the city I was living in. So I came into Chicago knowing that they were not a strong team, but they had Pavel. And then myself, Goff, and Kurt all win at the same time, so that was exciting. And we had high hopes, but still just we're nowhere near where we are today. And after that first year, I think we won 5 games, if I remember correctly. I was unanimously voted as captain, and I was like, okay, and I know a lot of Chicago people like, but like I cut half the team. I've always had a big competitive mindset, and how you create practices that force people to be competitive. And I think that comes with putting them in one-on-one situations in practice in front of the whole team. A lot of Frisbee teams, like you do pod workouts and stuff, and they want you to do that stuff on your own, where I think you need to be put in a situation where everyone's watching, give people a chance to earn their spot, and put them against matchups that maybe they're scared to go against. And so I really tried to frame practice over the years to create a competitive culture where, hey, you have to win your spot every week. And we actually held true to that. You look at our rosters throughout the seasons for the past few years, it's never been the same 20 every week. We've had people who have beaten people in getting their spot to play a game. And I think it's really kind of been that snowball effect where it's built and built throughout the years. And of course that helped get more players in Chicago to come play for the Union. You know, there's a lot of talent in Chicago Ultimate. And so it took a lot of time and a lot of work. But I think now reaching that point where the last 2 years, all of our practices have been so severely competitive and very hard. And that's like the best thing you want out of practice is I always think that you want your practice to be harder than games, right? We don't call fouls in practice on purpose, like kind of create a mental toughness within people. And so just looking back at where we've come and we've progressed every year, we've gotten better. And like, I think that is the most rewarding thing for me, regardless of outcome, is that I helped take a team, and it wasn't just me, I'm not taking all the credit, but I helped take the team and Pavel was there, and where we didn't know how to win games. And then next year, we won 7 or 8 games and made our first playoff appearance because we learned how to be a little more competitive. And then the following year after that, we got more people to come play, and we learned how to close out games. And now we're at this point where we're in the championship. So it's really awesome being on the inside and seeing the organizational growth in all aspects.
Ross, you've been such a huge part of the Union appearing in championship weekend last year and this year. When you look back on last year's championship weekend appearance, what are the biggest learnings that are still fresh in your mind as you're getting ready for a championship game?
I think the biggest learnings are that regardless of how much preparation you do in the season, things can happen that are unexpected in the game. You know, everyone's been playing for years, and this is just another day of Ultimate, and it's if you can execute on that day, you come out as the winner. Obviously, everyone wants to win. There's a little bit of pressure, but after the first point or so, that pressure kind of goes away, and you just kind of remind yourself you're just playing this game with a lot of the people that you love. And I think my parents have been very supportive. Obviously, last year, I had some couple late game mistakes that kind of haunted me for a while, for a month or so, after having, if you don't look at those, like I had a pretty strong game. But then you look back and you remember that it's a team sport, and yeah, I had some critical mistakes, and so for me, there's a lot of revenge that I want, and I want to always prove people that I can play the sport at a high level. But I think it's just, it comes to that competition aspect, right? You come in, and no matter what, you are relentless, and you compete every time regardless of the outcome, right? As a defender, you're not going to get every block attempt. As an offensive player, you're going to throw some turns, but if you let that shake you up, you're kind of failing your team in that regard. Even if you win or lose, you got to be relentless, and you got to kind of just have that dog mentality where, right, if you throw a tennis ball to a dog, it's chasing that thing every time. It might fumble it, but it's going to pick it up and bring it back. And it just does it over and over and over again. And so that's been a big mental thing that I've tried to instill in the team, and that's what we're here. We're just here to compete and give it our best.
I know you as a team haven't discussed specifically the game plan for tonight's game, but I'm curious, after watching yesterday's game, what were your initial reactions and what are you personally hoping to execute to help the Union notch a victory?
Gotta be careful so I don't reveal any strategy that New York can pick up off of us. I think they have an extremely talented team with a lot of good players, but so do we. We have also an equally talented team. They've had some more bigger moments than us, but I think I overheard Paul saying, like, we're excited to just play a team that's not in the Central and mix up that matchup. So I'm scared to answer this question because we're so in such a critical moment right now. But, you know, we're going to rely heavily on our defensive handler pressure and trying to shut down their throws. I think a lot of pressure begins on the mark. That's all I'm going to reveal to you. Sorry, after the game we can talk more.
No, I respect that. I respect that. Then tell me emotionally what you're most excited about approaching this game.
We're playing for a championship. Like, even after last night's win, I think, at least me, I was only like half excited. You know, like, work's not done. You can be excited after you win the whole thing, or be sad if you lose the whole thing, you know. But I think emotionally it's trying to let the emotions play in the game, but in a controlled manner. You know, like, I think some of the best athletes in the world have figured out how to play with like a focused rage almost, where it's not uncontrollable. And so I think if we can harness that, I think we put ourselves in a good position to win.
You played the best team in the league last year in the semifinals and came close to a win, but came up short. You're playing the best team in the league this year, and you're 3-point underdogs, according to DraftKings. What do you take away from last year and what happened in that game to get you ready to play this New York team that was so good yesterday?
Again, this is like our final moment as a team to play together. Every year, it's a brand new team. Even if you bring new players, it's never the same. Inside jokes change. Culture, we try to keep competitive and whatnot, but even that changes year to year. And so we found a lot of success in kind of going out there and having fun with each other. And I think taking from last year, we played kind of timidly. I think at the end of the game, we played to not lose the game instead of playing to win. And I think that is a big reason why we lost as well, is like, we're like, okay, we're up, we can be conservative, but this year we've tried to stay aggressive all 4 quarters, right? Keep your foot on the gas, and I think that's a big difference this year, is we're trying to play to win games, not play to not lose.
We've talked a lot about going into the championship game tonight, Ross, but I'm curious, what were the most satisfying things from the performance against Colorado from your mind? I mean, they were a good team that had beaten a lot of opponents handily, and you guys crushed them. How'd you do it, and what were the most satisfying elements of that win?
I mean, our defensive pressure was phenomenal all game long. We forced them into tight scenarios that we know they can make those throws, but again, it's a one-game scenario. It's a one-situation thing, and if you can get that to add on to each other, before you know it, we're up by 6 going in. I don't remember exactly where we're at half, but we gave ourselves a comfortable lead because our defense was able to apply so much pressure, and our offense, we're very confident in ourselves. We believe that we have the ability to get open on most people and that we are a matchup nightmare for other teams. We have a lot of threats, and I think everyone, like, it was a whole team effort that just everyone played well. A lot of people, like Joe White, played incredible. Dalton, Reed had a big block at the end there deep in the end zone. A lot of people on offense played well. Maybe not our best game offensively, but we held it together, and our defense gave us such a big cushion that there wasn't a whole lot of pressure, which helps us.
Yeah, I was curious to ask you about both Joe and Dalton. Neither guy played a lot with the Union this year for various reasons, and they didn't play great in the first half in the Central Division Final, which is why that game was close at halftime. What clicked in the second half of that game and against Colorado that made them the dynamic duo that they were?
They're both dogs. You look at them, and I mean, I've had to guard these guys in practices for the past few years now. I've played with them. We've both beaten each other, but Joe White is arguably the hardest person I've ever had to guard. Dalton Smith, I think I can guard him, but right, he can still, he's still a dog. He can do his things. And so we kind of just like instilled confidence in them that like no one can stop you from doing what you want to do. You kind of defeat yourselves. Joe's really long. He's hard to mark. Defensively, he's got a long mark, and we all know that they can throw whatever they want on the field. It's just fine-tuning that decision-making to be like, let's just run them. Let's put you in the best position to have success, knowing that you have those deep shots and those high-risk shots that you can complete, but if we can increase the efficiency and minimize that risk, we'll come out even stronger.
Last thing, Ross, you've got an accomplished athletic background that people may not know about from your high school days in Minnesota, basketball and football and perhaps other sports I'm not even aware of. Can you speak to how the big games that you've played in throughout your life in high school and college have prepared you for this moment? And what would it mean to win an AUDL championship in the spectrum of all the all the athletic accomplishments you've had in your life?
So I always love to say that I never want to be the person that peaked in high school, and scoring the game-winning shot in the state championship basketball game my senior year makes that a really high bar to beat, which I think has fueled me. And I'm a very competitive person. I love athletics. And so, I've been trying to be better than that in all aspects of my life. And I think as many times as you come into big games like this, that pressure is still there. And one thing that always kind of brings me back down to earth is just compartmentalizing it and looking at the small things, right? I just need to complete the next pass. I need to just make this cut. I need to attack this guy's hips in a certain way that allow me to get open, right? And just break the game down into smaller pieces, and that helps calm me down. The other part of that is playing intensely, being loud. I can't tell you why, but sometimes screaming just gets that nervous energy out. I encourage anyone to try it if they reach this moment. And then other people are intimidated of you too, so that's always a big thing. But no, I think I'm very prepared, and as I've grown older and matured, I've as I said earlier, it's just another game, right? That pressure will be there no matter what, and you can never really predict how you'll respond to it. But if you've got great teammates like we do, you hope that we lift each other up and help each other get through it together.
Great stuff. Ross, congrats on being here in the finals, and best of luck later tonight. That'll wrap up our game day press conferences here on Saturday at Championship Weekend 11. Chicago Union and the New York Empire for the AUDL title at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight on Fox Sports 2. Pre-game coverage on AUDL Facebook and YouTube with Ian, Daryl, and Cam starting about half an hour before that. We'll see you tonight. Thanks for watching.